It's time for another episode of We've Got Issues. It is our opportunity to come to you with some hot topics that we've been talking about on our text thread that we think you will also have opinions about. So we welcome you to dive in with us as we talk about topics that we think are things that we should all be kind of considering as we move forward. My name is Nick Cates. I have been friends with these two gentlemen who are with me for more than 40 years. We met at USC. They are masters of domains that they are now part of. Darren Gray, the academic, still a part of the USC administrative staff from Detroit, and Ron Evans in the DMV, the master of how should I best put it, Ron? You're the master of
technology.
Technology, that's right.
Finance.
Doing my wife's honeydew list.
That's it, man. That's it. Well, we all have that list to do, and it's a blessed thing. So anyway, thank you guys for joining us. And every week, one of us has the opportunity to bring the subject that is near and dear to his heart this week. And we have the due honor to hear from Ron about what's going on. What is your subject for the week, sir?
So my subject this week is going to be on the consumption economy. And there is a professor that he released a video less than 2 weeks ago, and it's already nearing 1 million views on YouTube. And I think we have it. The title of it is Consumerism is the Perfection of Slavery.
And here we go.
Okay. And what is economic logic? It's to see the world only through the lens of capital. Okay, does it make sense? So when you see someone and you're like, okay, well, do I want to date this person? You don't ask, oh, is this person a nice person? You ask yourself, how much money does this person have? Okay, do you understand? You use economic logic in order to understand the world and to reason and analyze the world, okay? Now, let me ask you this question. Today, is this how China works? Is this how the world works? The answer is yes, okay? Are you like this? Yes, you are like this, okay? You've been brainwashed into thinking that this is the only way to behave and to think. You're in school. Why are you in school?
So you can get a good job.
So you can get a good job. Why? To make money. So you can buy things, okay? You understand? That's how you all think. But there are different ways to think about school. Like, I'm in school to learn, to open my mind, to have an imagination, to think critically about the world, right?
So the video is about 13 minutes long, and that's just a snippet. And what he posits is that there was a period certainly in the United States, that ended right around the end of World War II. And what happened is we were a country that focused on the collective. We focused on societal progression. We focused on getting people back to full employment when they returned home from World War II. We focused on trade unions. And what we did is we said that the people are the center of our country. And what happened after World War II is we started to shift our mindset to consumption. I want to get people to buy homes in the suburbs. I want to provide GI loans, well, to some people, not all people, to be able to afford that home. And what do they do when they buy the home? They go down to Sears or Montgomery Ward's back in the day, and they buy a washer and dryer. And they get on this cycle of consumption. And what happens is it starts to splinter that group of people that were together in a shared reality. And now we're judging people based on what they have. I have this many square feet, you have that many. My car is foreign, your car is domestic. And what it does, it has perfected the ability for those actually in power to create a fragmentation in the lower systems of the people below them and keep us docile, fighting with each other for prestige, for the ability to signal that we are better than others, while not realizing that the true power is much higher. And those are the people that are making profits off of making us buy more Tide, a new house, a new car, and things like that. So that's the premise of the video. And I would say that when I go to church, and I'm sure it's happened to you guys as well, and this is going to lead into the conversation, the pastor will stand up there and he'll say something to the effect of, people going to clubs and drinking alcohol and doing all sorts of illicit things, and the congregation is quiet. And the pastor always says, all right, now, I know you haven't always been saved. And that's the conversation I want to have. I'm going to grant that we have higher-minded ideals potentially now, but I want to talk about how has consumerism affected the three of us, and does the pursuit of consumption resonate with you, and what is your personal struggle with it? And then I'll have another question after that.
Can I ask you a question just on your premise before we move forward? You mentioned that this ethic or this point of view kind of took root after World War II. How does that square with the idea of, like, say, the Gilded Age and the age of the robber barons and so forth, and even from the beginning of how the country was founded, where it was basically, the pursuit of monopolistic elite ownership of land, means of production, that people, means of production. Like, are you saying that this is a relatively new post-World War II phenomenon, or is it just ramped up in speed?
It's the latter. It's ramped up. The robber barons, the founding fathers. I mean, look, George Washington was the largest landowner in Virginia. The elite has always been the elite. And the Gilded Age is a perfect example of being able to control the railroads, control the oil companies, to enrich and make, at the time, $1 billion or $2 billion for Rockefeller. There was always the ruling class. But what happened is, if you think about it, you remember there was the rise of Marxism, there was the rise of unions as a counterweight to what was happening globally. And what we've seen that the ability to splinter the masses and say, well, you're doing really well, and those people aren't, but they're lazy. Mm-hmm. Or you've got a nice car, but he's got a nicer car. So instead of worrying about the collective concern of the community, you're like, well, how do I get that brand new Tesla instead of, the crappy car I drive right now? So the ruling class has been able to figure out a way to say, I'm going to enslave you to consumption and debt without having to worry about you rising up, because you don't even realize you're enslaved.
So take us back to your question again.
All right. What has been your personal struggle with consumerism? Mm-hmm. So let me go first, so I can give an example. I've said that I've had a tremendous upward mobility from my father being a truck driver, my mom being clerical, to where we are now. And sometimes I feel like I want to rub metaphoric people's noses in my success. There was a time, I've never told you guys this story. Ooh. So there was a time at USC, before I met you guys, where I needed to see a therapist because I had a wallet and it had all these credit cards in it. Neiman Marcus, Saks Fifth Avenue, IMAG, all these stupid credit cards. I didn't have a damn job. But until the credit card companies stopped issuing me credit cards, I had a collection of credit cards. And I knew something was wrong, and I went to see a therapist on campus. And this lady said, you need to understand something. You aren't from San Marino, which, for those that don't know, is a very exclusive part of Pasadena. And you may never have what they have, and you may never have a Rolex, and you need to be good with that.
Was she black?
No, of course
That's
not.
the way your dialect was. You ain't never. I was like, okay,
Sorry.
That's some down home therapy right there.
No. I was putting my ignorant dialect in it because that's how I felt when she said it. And I know she meant, stop trying to chase consumption and a lifestyle that you may not have. Be happy in your skin. But that's not how I took it. And I chased that Rolex until I was 40. And when I finally got it, I wanted to say, kiss my behind. Don't tell me what I can't do. Don't tell me that there's a limit on what I can achieve in this country. And that consumption was a symbol to me of the struggle that I had. Now, in hindsight, it's just a damn watch. But that was my personal struggle. Was like, I need to buy something that I can look at every day and say, one, screw you. And two, look how far you've come. And it had a monetary value attached. And I don't think that's, in hindsight, that probably wasn't the best thing to do.
I think that if there was something that you or anyone had done that in doing it, it set them back, I think that would be a regrettable thing. But it doesn't sound like buying the Rolex, set you back. Maybe it didn't provide the level of satisfaction that you would have thought, but it doesn't sound like it was a mistake.
Oh, no, it's provided tremendous satisfaction. In fact, I'll tell you. So one of the things I do, and this is like off topic, is sometimes I'll be at work, throughout my career, and someone is like talking to me like I'm an idiot. And I would just put my hand to my cheek like this. And I'm thinking to myself, you don't even know who you're dealing with. I am not some sucker. You don't even know what kind of watch I have. But it was this reinforcement of, I'm not who you think I am. Okay, I know how to play this game. So it's been a tremendous symbol to me, but it's also a sign of, why did you buy something to get a personal satisfaction that you could have got maybe in another way without buying something? Okay. This is as I'm in the autumn of my life, I think about these things, not when I was in the spring.
Now that you spent like 20 years enjoying the talisman of your success, you can look back and say,
But Ron, hearkening back to you calling BS on me, in this, you're still the hero. How is this enslaving you? Like you've talked about the success, you've talked about the Rolex, you've talked about you still even believe it when you're in meetings with people. You've not talked about how you've been enslaved, because being enslaved is a bad, traumatic thing. What has been the bad thing where you're, from this story, it's like, yeah, that worked out. So what's the slavery part?
Can you walk into one of those fancy restaurants that Nick and his wife walk into in a hoodie and sweatpants? No. Why not? Because you have to buy symbols of your ability to move in that economic strata.
Again, that's general. How have you been enslaved?
For those exact ways. I was just giving another example. I have been enslaved by the choices that I've made on consumption throughout my life. I'm making different choices now, but the choice of cars I bought, that was a form of, look at me, I'm successful. What does Dave Ramsey say? Buying things you don't need with money you don't have to impress people you don't know. Some of these things, yes, I like sports cars a lot, but some of these things were like, you know what? Did I really need to buy that stupid car? No. Should I have bought? And I could think of one in particular where it's like, man, that was a waste of money.
Well, I see you not bringing up the idea of that shiny new Porsche that you have. Right?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I'm not hearing the bad part.
Okay.
That's not an example of
no, because I'm not seeing you like that was a bad investment.
No, it was not an investment at all.
Exactly.
It was absolutely not. And since you went there, Nick,
I didn't want to go there. I was going to let Nick.
Since you went there, Nick, It's another story. I was 10 years old, and that's when we pulled over someone in our neighborhood that had a black 911. I took photos of it, and I said to myself, one day I want to have a car like that. Or no, I'm sorry, I want that car. And I waited 50 years, and I made sure that all the boxes were checked in our family goals.
Still not slavery. You're not landing the plane, Ron. You're talking about consumerism as a form of slavery and pitting people against each other.
Yes.
You've not told any of that yet.
But to me, it's sort of obvious in the things that we buy, if your choice is.
You.
But I thought I've given you examples of that.
Nick, did you get any of the slavery part from his stories?
Yeah, I'm not seeing the shackles, but
that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
You got a shiny new car.
All right. So
watch.
All right. If tomorrow I decide to give away the car and I drive a Hyundai, okay. If I drive down the neighborhood, I might be aware that there's a different perception of me. They might be like, "Oh, wow, he's fallen on hard times. Is he divorced? Is he unemployed?" Throughout my life, it might have been things where we bought, homes that maybe we didn't really need this many square feet, okay? But we bought into a great neighborhood because the great neighborhood had great schools, but it also was like, look it up.
You're spinning it into. I'm doing what you've been doing to me. You're spinning this into how. Essentially how great you are.
No,
we didn't have the right square feet, but it had a good school system. See, again, you're landing on the side of I'm not seeing the negative part. I thought it was going to go in an entirely different direction. I thought you were
the negative part is you're living in a way that you don't need to because you're spending more money than you actually are required to. If it comes back to Maslow's hierarchy, a lot of the things that we buy aren't needs, they're wants. And the wants are fueled by consumerism.
So are you still there?
I struggle. Yeah, I do struggle. Absolutely, I struggle. Because I also know that the higher you go in your career, or if you just start doing activities that I really can't wait for my parting shot, you're really going to get a kick with that. You act a certain way, you think a certain way, you don't bring a boom box to the restaurant, you act civilized. So there's always things that we do differently based on.
Do you have a desire to bring a boom box to a restaurant?
Why can't I bring one?
No, but do you have a desire to bring one? Or to wear a do-rag or anything like that? That's what I'm saying. You're talking hypothetical things, but it's not landing. But But anyway, go ahead.
Listen, I just want to say that the bigger notion that I think you're getting at, Ron, is that we're all in some way affected by consumerism on a certain level. The good news for us, I think, in this room is that we've never made a decision based on consumerism that has been in some way catastrophic. Maybe it leads to a little bit more debt for a particular period of time, or a little bit less in our bank account or whatever. But I think I'll speak for myself. Certainly, I am affected by consumerism in the sense that I like to dress a certain way. I like to present myself a certain way. I enjoy the value of having property and things of that nature. I'm not as affected by big ticket like cars and things like that. I drove the same car for a very long time. And
Sparky,
right? Because I was doing other things with the money. But like anyone else, at a certain point, someone said to me, "Nick, that car just doesn't suit you anymore. Like, you need to, I know you're doing these other things, but can't you do both?" Right? And at that point, I decided, maybe it's time to let Sparky go. And I, bought the big Lincoln Navigator and all that stuff, and went that route, right? So,
you still have it?
No, that went in the divorce.
Oh, okay. What are you driving now, bro?
I was driving a hydrogen vehicle, and it got totaled. And so now Marie and I are driving. We're sharing the Range Rover. So that's
what? I'm sorry.
which, mind you, is a 2010. So there's that. So it's not a new one. It's but it's very.
So that gives you the high ground. Is that what you're saying?
No. What I'm saying is that there's always the desire to continue to have nice things, but I don't think in any way to our detriment. Now,
that's right.
I could look at where I have slipped up, has been in maybe making investments that haven't always panned out, right? That's where my mind goes.
Mm-hmm.
So if I've wasted any money or had a fail, it's been sometimes in investing that didn't go the way I thought it should. But I think we're all after those talismans, those symbols of success that mean something to us, because without resources and without money, you have no real purchase in this economy, in this society. So I think that's where my mind goes. Darren, what's your take?
Very similar to Ron. Growing up poor, when I first got a little bit of change, I did buy stuff. So, but my consumerism was more of a Scarlet, from Gone with Lynn. I will never go hungry again. It was more of that.
Mm-hmm.
I did a lot of things early in my career in business to try to shield myself from being poor. And so I invested a lot in business stuff, because it was always that fight against, I'm not going to be poor again. I'm not going to have roaches again. I am never going back there again. And so that drove a lot of that. And when I came up against that desire versus being a dad, I had to make a choice, and I chose dad. And I gave up all of the aspirations, a couple of decades ago toward, making money. And I went to, looking at the model that you all, my perception of you all, like my friends had done, which was, slow and steady financial security. That's what I started looking at, because I didn't have any of that in my youth, my childhood. I didn't know anybody other than you all, people who had actually gone through and done things in a steady, secure way, putting money aside for saving, wanting to buy a property, all those things. I had never done it. I'd always, swung for the business until about 2.5 decades ago, when I said that I'm not doing that anymore. So my chasing of things, I don't really have that anymore. It's actually the opposite now. I have to convince myself to buy something and say, it's okay for me to spend a little bit more on, having a nice breakfast. If I'm going to treat myself to breakfast, it's okay. It's this constant conversation. Pretty much it's not as the violent conversation that Ron had during the marathon, but it really is, an ongoing thing as to, like, do I need to buy this? Is this important? I have to actually convince myself of how it goes to the ultimate goal. But in my youth, it was that war against, Nick, you and I and Ron, we're all part of the Jones generation, keeping up with the Joneses. It's sort of like this group between the boomers and the Gen X's. It's called the Jones generation. And we're in that, where we were trying to keep up with the Joneses. And so that's part of what my youth was.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, one of the things that our generation, and I like the Jones generation, I definitely understand that. I would say our parents' generation, especially those that were fortunate to live in the hills, for those outside of LA, Baldwin Hills, View Park, Windsor Hills, Ladera, they were also keeping up with the Joneses, because they were upper middle class Black folks in the 1950s, 60s, early 70s, where, if you were a doctor, if you were a professional, it's like, oh my God, you are part of the talented 10th. I think where I see consumerism hitting is, it tells us that you can have prestige and people will look at you differently based on what you buy. And I think that a lot of people feel that way. I was talking to our friends that are here from the Netherlands, and I was listening to this conversation about there's some bag. It's not Gucci or Fendi. It's some bag, and I don't know what is it.
Hermes?
No, it's something else. I think it starts with a B or something. The bag started $10,000.
Sounds like Hermes, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, I remember that one. But these bags, I'm like, for a bag, but it signals something, and some people will, want to buy that.
Oh,
And
the Birkin. It was a Birkin.
that's it. Yes.
That's an Hermes bag. Yeah, Birkin.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Birkin. Yes. And I'm like, and they go as high as like $400,000, and it's like, what? And I think that's what we fall into is we look around and we see people posting on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. Look at my curated perfect life, and look at this Birkin bag I have. Don't you wish you were me?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I've told our girls, never be impressed with anything you can buy on time, be it a car, a bag, a vacation. If you can whip out a credit card or take out a loan, don't be impressed, because you don't know what their debt structure looks like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you, I think that issue, I think you touch on an important thing. And I think the professor in the clip that we played is getting at that. And I was having this conversation with my wife just the other day about how many times people today, particularly in Los Angeles, don't have the means to do the investing in things like buying a house or putting large sums of money away in for retirement and stuff, because of the tenuous nature of employment and just kind of the way the economy works, so the high price of living. So rather than focusing on those kinds of things, people are now focusing on experiences and big ticket symbolic items that don't have value. They're not investments. They are just symbols. There's some symbolic value to them, to your point about Instagram and so forth and TikTok. And so you get in where you fit in, right? So the dream now is less about owning a home, owning rental property. Although there was a period of time in the late teens, 20 teens, and early 2020s when everyone was talking about, I want to get into owning multiple rental properties and stuff. You've seen a lot of content about that. As those dreams got further out of reach, people started to err toward just the simple things, the lower price but seemingly high ticket value things, and it's a sad result, I think.
Yeah, but Nick, let me push back on you, man, because I don't see those being the same. If you can't afford to make a large investment in real estate, the alternative is not to consume and spend money. It's to invest in mutual funds or CDs or something else.
Yeah, I think the zeitgeist has moved, though. The goalposts have moved. This is a generational thing. This isn't, and I'm talking about even people up to their 40s and 50s in some cases, but certainly in the 30s and 20s, like, well, I can't have what my parents had. I can't have whatever. So what's going to make me feel good? It's like you with the Rolex, right? How old were you when you bought it at 40, right?
Yeah, 40.
But now if you can get that Rolex when you're 30, at least you got that. I mean, and it may not be as expensive as a Rolex, but I think people get what they can get to have some level of attachment to success, a symbol of success or symbols of success. The Birkin bag, when you're walking down the street as a woman, other people know, oh, that's a Birkin. If you're wearing a certain designer label, other people know without you having to say anything, oh, that's YSL or that's Gucci or that's whatever. So you get the social capital of that. Whereas if you've got 2 rental properties, or if you got, $1 million in your 401k, nobody can see that. For people like us, maybe that really makes you sleep well at night. I can walk down the street naked and and they can't see my bank account, and that brings me a lot of satisfaction. But many people, hey, having $1 million in a bank account or whatever is so far out of reach. I'll take the Birkin. because now I at least I got something. You know what I mean? That's my take on it.
Well, I've seen when I used to teach for the school district, I had one student who had an expensive Gucci bag, but also every month was asking me about her bus pass. Because the school district will give away bus passes, and so she's like, "I won't be able to get to school if I don't have my bus pass with a Gucci purse," and it was real Gucci purse on her arm, because for her, that symbol gave her validity into who she was as a human being. Like when people saw her walking down the street with that Gucci bag, they gave her a certain amount of respect. And so I saw a lot of that because the population that I worked with, a lot of them, they were like me when I was growing up. They were just poor. And for them, the extension of credit and being able to buy stuff and show it off was important. But for when I was growing up, only certain people had credit, so we just didn't have anything. I wore the same shoes, same clothes. My mom had to make my clothes, and it was just we were just poor, and everybody knew we were poor.
Right, and I think what you just presented is the example that the professor was making, and I was inarticulately making, and that is that person with the Gucci purse can't even afford public transportation. Mm-hmm. But she's been told that there is prestige, and you will get the halo of prestige with a certain purchase, not with an investment, not with saving money in a CD, like you said, Nick, or having being able to just say I can walk down the street naked because I got money. No, just go buy this on credit if you have credit, and everyone will fawn over you, and that's the form of slavery where I've got you buying stuff from the wealthy to make you feel like you're the wealthy, and you're not, because the bank account don't lie.
Well, I'm gonna throw something else at you that's gonna raise the hackles on you. Education can be the same thing. Getting a college degree, you get people to take out hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans.
Yeah.
To make them feel that they are going to go into the accepted class.
I agree.
Going to a USC or an MIT or Stanford or Harvard, Cal State LA isn't good enough, or the other places aren't good enough. So it's not just in the consumerism. There's also elements in higher education. You gave an example in one of our other podcasts about a trade school versus a degree, whereas someone, if they can make a good living as an electrical as an electrical engineer, but they can make a better living as an electrician. But you had a problem with someone pushing other people's kids toward electrician, even though you would have less debt and you'd be making more money, and you are less likely to be downsized because of AI. But in your mind, it's a lower status than someone getting a degree in electrical engineering. So
that's well said.
Slavery.
That's well said, and I think you missed your calling as a political pundit that distorts the truth. Let me give you the points that you seem to have forgotten or have omitted. The conversation was around
starting to be true.
Yeah, the conversation was around salaries. And you posited that an electrician could make $80,000 a year and an electrical engineer can make $70,000 or $80,000 a year. Aren't they the same? And I said to you, no, they're very different, because the trajectory of the electrician is capped unless he or she is a very small percentage to start their own business, whereas the trajectory of someone in an engineering organization can go from individual contributor up to VP, SVP, pulling in crazy money. So that's why I said it's better to pursue the electrical engineering path, is for the long-term income, not the short-term, short-sighted view that you're trying to get across.
But everybody, there's only how many senior VPs, there are only so many senior technicians. It's just like the NBA. There's only so many slots at the top. Most of your people are going to be in your average, rate, maybe making good living, maybe a couple $100,000. But
you know what they need to do? They need to burn the ships so they can get to the top.
Yes, but we're talking about average people, not these super, we're saying average people you and a lot of people in our socioeconomic class have that same slavery toward education. This is, if you exchange consumerism with educationism, you can have that same conversation about those people who are trying to get their kids. I mean, think about some of our friends, what they're spending on private schools. What are they? I mean, you look at some of our, you look at that, and you had a conversation about one of your kids going to an in-state school because it was going to be cheaper rather than going to an out-of-state school, which would be more expensive. I think it was it was one of the schools.
Don't make me sad. Don't make me sad.
but it's there's this perception in education that follows that same consumerism, which is you got to get into a good school, you got to go to a good private school. There's all of these things. And you want to move into a neighborhood that has a good school. So in education, there's a very similar track that I'm saying that people fall into. I told you I was going to raise the hackles.
It's okay. I'm just enjoying your soliloquy. Go ahead.
Am I wrong, Nick? Am I wrong?
No, I think the point is that everything has been commodified, right? Exclusivity in education has now become the currency, right? How exclusive can your college be? How many people can you apply and turn away? And so those people who end up getting in feel like they've got some exclusivity, but does that give them really a true leg up in most cases in terms of the debt that you incur versus the salary or the wages that you're able to get after the fact? I think your point is the same, is that it's a badge. It becomes a badge whether you have a degree from X university and you're still working at Starbucks, you're still in your parents, living at home with your parents, but you've got that degree. And people are starting to see that, wow, maybe I've been sold a bill of goods. Maybe it's not, it would have been a nice to have, but not a need to have. And in terms of the electrical degree or the electrical engineer or the electrician, there has to be space for both. Some people's track would take them toward electrical engineering, and other people like, listen, if I can make a good salary, as an electrician, why not? And one is more suspected of getting displaced by AI than the other one is, right? So there needs to be a thing for both. But I think the point is that there is a certain amount of elitism, or not even elitism, but consumerism that is more and more baked into everything we do. The whole idea of our economy in America is to consume. Right? The economy does not work if people do not consume, right? Which is at odds with where things are going, where the goal of industry is to use as few people as possible to get the same amount done. The productivity, right? So our consumer economy is at odds with the stated goal of business, which is to do the most with the least. So at some point, those two things are going to come crashing in on each other.
Yeah. So I think in this case, Darren and I are not that far apart when it comes to education, because I think that public schools can provide a great education. At the end of the day, your kid's ability to be successful is highly dependent on who they chose for a mom and dad. If your mom and dad are highly engaged, you're very likely to be successful. The other factor, of course, is you're more likely to graduate from college based on your zip code than anything else. So there is a socioeconomic factor that's undeniable, and I've absolutely seen it. Darren, I'm sure you're seeing it as well. And I think that is a problem. So I do agree, and when I think about, the value of an education, I wish USC wasn't so ridiculously expensive, or just college in general. And I think that at some point you have to look at yourself and you have to say to your child, we ain't got it. And I can afford to help you go to Cal State LA or UCLA, but not USC. Right. And if you work your tail off, hopefully your kids will go to USC, And I think that that's something that we don't stress enough, is it's okay to not go to the elite school and have the hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, because there is no guarantee. It is a function of grit and also luck.
Why don't we take Darren? You give one more bite at the apple, then Ron, you can take us on to your last thoughts and parting shot.
Well, I'll swing back to the USC. I am so happy that the USC we went to, we could afford and get the benefit of the USC we couldn't afford. So that's my parting shot.
You ain't never lied.
I got the pieces of paper behind me that says I went to USC, and I get credit for today's USC.
Right. That's right.
No, that's real. That's real. I mean, I think what the reason that this was a topic that I thought a lot about, and I'm going to go into Nick's wheelhouse for a second here, is when you think about what's happening at a macro level with our current president and his wanton tariff policy. And what he's saying is that I'm going to tax various countries for the right to access the U.S. market. What is that market? It's our consumers.
Mm-hmm.
We only have a 4% savings rate. China has 40%. What we're saying and what the president and people of his ilk are saying is, I have a captive audience in our country of 300 million people that just consume, that buy stuff. And if you want access to it, I'm going to put a 30% tariff on you and a 50% tariff. That's the barrier to entry to get to all of these people that are enslaved to purchasing stuff. And that's when it sort of squared with me that, wow, this guy's video really does resonate, because that's what Trump is doing, is he's saying, I'm going to deny you access to this field of people toiling to make other people rich.
Right. And to what end? Because at the end of the day, that, let's say those tariffs all go through, it means that the people in this country will end up paying more for all those things. So how has that benefited us?
Yep.
Right?
Totally agree.
Well, maybe that's the key to getting people to buy less, right? And then the whole
I said
thing.
that a while back.
What?
I think I said that a while back. I think I'm going to have to go through one of our earlier episodes to see if I said that.
Well, if you said it, you didn't say it in a way that I liked.
No. I mean, Darren complained about consumerism in so much as he wanted to change the structure of our economy, which might as well change the color of the sky tomorrow morning. It's not going to happen.
Right. Well, this has been, again, one of those topics that is ripe for further discussion. So if you've heard something that resonates with you about how you feel about consumerism and your own purchasing and so forth, we'd love to hear your comments. So please do comment, and be sure to like our channel and share our videos with others who are equally interested in these kinds of subjects. So before we get out of here, Ron, give us your parting shot for the week.
Yeah. So just to make sure that I still get admitted into the You're a Capitalist Club, because you might think I may not be based on the topic, did something really cool last night. We have our friends in from the Netherlands, and a lady in my running club that I'm in, she happens to run a park here in the area, and she told me about polo in the park. And I think we have a clip.
And we'll share that.
Yeah, some video I took last night.
He's going to establish himself on the line of the ball. Now Hardy Pemberton taking this ball deep into the corner. Hardy is going to use the wall to pass it to himself right here. Pemberton gets to it, checks down, turns that pony around, and now Echezreta jumps on the line. Larissa is going down the arena right now. Larissa Echezreta is going to establish himself.
We can stop. So, the reason I wanted to share this is it was really, really cool, first of all. But it was also an example where you look around, you're like, 1, 2, and sometimes we don't go into spaces that we think are going to make us feel uncomfortable. And this was certainly one of them, where it's like I had this image of what it was going to be like. It was just like normal people, just there having picnic blankets and wine, and we had food. And if you have the chance, it was actually really fun to go watch polo. And I know how bourgeois that sounds, I know.
You had your seersucker suit on, I'm sure.
You call these scallops?
Did you wear your do-rag though?
But it was one of these things where there are spaces that at this stage and age of our lives that we've never visited, be it a really nice restaurant or a club where we're like, oh, those are probably stuffy or, waspy or whatever. And it's like, no, they're accessible to us too. And this was just a great example.
Nice. Now, did you find the atmosphere the big draw, or was the actual sport of polo intriguing at all?
It was intriguing because one of our friends, he's never been to the US, so he wanted a totally American experience. So in addition to getting him his first hot dog at Costco, which was awesome, there was a polo match. It's like, yeah, let's do that. So it was more, intriguing, and we had guests in town to do it, and that was going to be fun. But our daughters went with us, and we all agreed, absolutely do it again. And it was like $40 for however many people you could put in your car. And we had the picnic basket in the back. And it was just something I never would have thought I'd do. And I'm glad I did. And just go into those spaces that you never thought you'd go into, you might actually enjoy it.
Now I want a Costco hot dog, so thank you for that.
Yeah. See, and that's called range, Darren, from a Costco hot dog to polo.
Right, hey. Ron is a man for all seasons.
All seasons.
Man for all seasons. I got it. Well, there you have it. I mean, from Costco hot dogs to polo, consumerism is what you make it. So
that's what I'm saying.
If you, again, we appreciate you guys being with us for this episode. And if you have thoughts or feedback, we'd love to hear it. We always enjoy engaging in these conversations ongoing. So please feel free to share this with others who may be also inclined to have an opinion. And always, we look forward to seeing you. So guys, thank you again for such a lively discussion about these important topics, especially baseball or polo, apple pie, and hot dogs.
And hot dogs.
Hot dogs. That's right.
That's it. So look, guys, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time when We've Got Issues. Take care.